On Year 9, this is a video about fluvial or river processes, and we're going to recap last week's excellent lesson by Mr. Joy on especially the 6 marker to do with river flooding, whether it's natural, human, or a bit of both. So if I just open the PowerPoint and just show you what we're up to at the start. If you can just have a look, you don't need to write the table out, but if you can have a look at the diagram on the right and try to match up the emboldened terms. So where does drainage basin go? Source, tributary, confluence, watershed and mouth. While you're doing this activity, I thought it was only fitting to continue the musical theme that was set by Mr. Joy last week. So I'll play a lovely song.
Just like a river, I've been running ever since. It's been a long time coming, but I know change won't come.
That's enough of that. Right, so if we have a look, the answer's on here. So we got source at the top, and then obviously the starting point of a river, and then just checking the mouse works. Tributary, a short bit. Miss Bishop's has a good explanation of this actually, where you say like tribute act. It's not the main act. That's a good way of thinking of it. It's a smaller version, or less popular version. It's the same with the river. And then your drainage basin, just the whole part. A confluence is a position where two rivers meet, and then your watershed is like the border of the two drainage basins. So any water that reaches the surface here will fall into a different drainage basin and a different river and end up in the mouth of a different river. And then you've obviously got here the mouth. A, B and C will be the upper, middle and lower course. And you would have done a bit of work last week. So some lovely drainage basin diagrams where you've done a bit more work on that. So we're going to look at, based on Mr. Joy's lesson last week, you would have done a 6-mark question. We're going to mark it. We're going to then look at 2 model answers, and then there'll be an opportunity for you to redraft it. And then after that, we'll be presenting some new information about fluvial processes. Say fluvial, it may come up on exam, so it's just a sophisticated term for river, but it may come up, so don't let that throw you. So we looked at the picture. We're going to look at the work from last week. This is a simplified mark scheme from your question last week. Most mark schemes follow the same pattern. They're not in level 1, 2 and 3, it's not grades, but they just split your answer up into 3. Level 1 is always something where it says simple statements. So you may have said river flooding is caused by rain, or river flooding is caused by heavy rainfall. Developed statement, river flooding is caused by heavy rainfall. This means that you're just taking it a little bit further and explaining your point. A good way of practicing this is to try and think of the answer in your head. You'll always think of a keyword or a point, and then just ask yourself, so what? And then just try and take that answer a little bit further. And then at the end, fully developed statements is really where, especially where there's about river flooding, you're looking for quite a lot of keywords and fully developed ideas. And we'll come on to that in today's lesson as well. In terms of the question, they're quite strict on these when I've marked these before, because the command word, you should have box a command word. The command word is to what extent. So you really need to be dealing with that statement and evaluating to have a chance of getting 4 out of 6 at least. So we're looking for a full evaluation with some balance, and we'll talk about what that means in the next few slides. So what I want you to do, sorry, just before this, is if you, in a second, pause the video and can you look through your work from last lesson. If you didn't have a chance to, it's the first time you've done this lesson, just think about what you would put to get the 3rd band, level 3, 5 to 6. You can just pause the video and mark your work, take as long as you like, Oh, sorry, forgot you were listening. Right. So, river flooding is a natural phenomenon. To what extent do you consider this statement to be correct? Again, we've got the mark scheme that we spoke about on top. Got a model answer here. I just want you to look at it and think which level it sits in. Don't worry about the specific mark, but firstly, as examiners, you've got to look at the right level first and then try and award the right mark. So think about those descriptors that are up here and think about what level it will be. You just want to pause this, take as long as you like, and then think about what score you would give it. What level? Level 1, level 2, level 3. Okay, so I've put it on here. I've put level 2. It's got plenty of keywords. It's got good explanation of natural processes. It certainly says that when it talks about less intensity adding to the water, causing it to flood, it's the one weakness with it is that it's all talking about natural. Now, I've seen a lot of low-level answers on this. They think flooding, they think rain, but that's about it. But if you look at Mr. Joy's lesson from last week, you've got ideas about deforestation, where humans are cutting trees down. You've got ideas about urbanisation, building on areas, creating concrete that is an impermeable surface. There are lots of, and there might be poor management. You might have a poorly built dam that might it might increase the chances of it flooding. So humans are, I would argue, as much to blame for flooding as natural events and natural things. So it hasn't got anything on that, but what it does do, it does say therefore river flooding is a natural phenomenon. It's a nice brief conclusion. It references the statement, so there's a partial evaluation in that, even if it is implied. Now, when we get to the next answer, have a little look through, pause it, and think about what's different. Try and think about comparing the two answers you've seen now. So just pause it now. Okay, this answer's level 3 because it's got the balance, it's got the human and the physical, or the natural. It talks about building on land. I'd like him to mention urbanisation, but yeah, as it says at the bottom here, a bit short on the human element. It doesn't really talk about the processes as much. But heavy rainfall, it's got really good, lots of keywords in there. What you should be doing with these questions is to what extent, as Mr. Joy said last week, you glance at the marks, you've got 6 marks, and really think of 6-mark questions as having 3 parts. It might be that you, I'm filming this towards lunchtime, you might think of a lovely sandwich or a lovely burger, and you've got your first bit of the bun, the top bun, you've got your main part of it, maybe a lovely ham and cheese filling, and then at the bottom you've got your bottom bun. Without that bottom bun, you have not got a sandwich. Without that conclusion, you've not got a good 6-mark. So try and think of it like that. Think about putting it into 3 parts. If we just this is really good practice about how to start a to what extent question. So I'm trying to get how to highlight these. So starting it like that, the partial bit really shows that you're going to, you know that it's balanced. You know that it's not always natural. You don't need to go this far in terms of an introduction. Then get straight into it. Heavy rainfall can cause flooding to be somewhat natural. The somewhat means that you don't think it is all natural. So again, you're getting towards this full evaluation that's here. It then develops another process about rock type. I would like, for a 6 out of 6 really, could say geology, like the building bit could say about urbanisation. Again, there's another evidence of evaluation here, which has got the however. And then at the conclusion, it says to an extent. You don't think it's fully to do with physical reasons, but there are humans causing it as well. So there's lots in there that have, if we just go take a full screen, these terms that we've put in red are really worthwhile trying to steal. Certain phrases, sentences, words that we spoke about in a Year 8 lesson recently. We spoke about using words like yet, however, although, despite, somewhat. All of these terms are going to show the examiner that you are not just thinking of any event as just being caused by one thing. You're dealing with the complexity of it. You're thinking there's more things that are involved. So, yeah, like I said, it's got level 3. It's now down to you. Before we look at river processes, we are just going to look at our work from last week. You've marked it. You've looked at the model answers, and particularly you might want to pause the video and go back and see why that answer got 5 or 6 out of 6. Now it's over to you to redraft your work. I'd recommend doing this with different colour pen if you've got one available. You may not need to completely write it out, a new one, but you may just want to edit what's there if you're nearly there. So try and aim for this level 3, 5 to 6. If you just want to pause that video and have a go at the redraft and then resume once you've finished it. Okay, the next bit really is just to talk through river processes. You may want to have a pen and paper handy, but by the end of this, you are going to be creating 3 annotated diagrams to illustrate the 3 river processes. And I've put some links up if you want further research. If my explanation is not that great, you'll have some YouTube videos if you want further research on these processes. So, erosion. If you have done coasts, it is exactly the same. You'd be glad to know. There are 4 types. You've got hydraulic action, where the force of the water is creating cracks in the rock by the banks. And remember, erosion is the wearing away and removal of sediment or rocks. So it's really for hydraulic action, it's the force of the water. Remember that F word, force. And then you've got abrasion, where at the bottom rocks are scraping. So really think of the term scrape, a bit like sandpaper. It scrapes away at the riverbed and it wears it away. Attrition is where rocks, sediment collides. So it collides, it becomes smaller, the rocks become smaller, smoother and more rounded, and that's a way that the rocks are wearing away. And finally, solution is not evident in the picture because that's where the rocks are dissolved, so they completely disappear. That's generally why you see that towards the lower course of the river, near the mouth, it's got a kind of muddy appearance. It's got a browny, yellowy look due to all the dissolved sediment that's come upstream. So they're the 4 types of erosion. Like I said, if you want more information on that, please have a look at the video links I send around later on. Okay, deposition is your easiest term. It's just the dumping of sediment. So deposition begins with D, just think of dumping. And it's where the river does not have as much energy, or the load, what the river is carrying, is too heavy. So you've obviously got at the upper course, before all the erosion, you have your big boulders, your cobbles and pebbles. They get deposited, but the finer materials after erosion certainly happen further down here. And deposition is just where the river is dumping material. If the river's got lots of energy, it's going to carry the material further. So that's more transportation, which we'll come on to. If the river has not got much energy, it will just deposit. So the key bits for deposition, remember, it's low energy and it's dumping material. For deposition, you don't need to draw that diagram, but you'll have a basic diagram on paper in your books, just to show what the process is all about. There are not, unlike erosion and transportation, there are not 4 sort of subgroups of deposition. So that's the easiest one. Lastly, transportation. Again, same if you've done coast, exactly the same. So this should be an easy one to remember. So with transportation, I like to think of key verbs or key phrases for each process, and it goes from large to small. So traction is about rolling. Think about a tractor. The wheels in a tractor are really slow. They're going really, really slow. They're rolling around away on a country road. That's where large boulders are rolled along the riverbed. Very hard to say. So next, saltation is all about bouncing. The pebbles are smaller, they are bouncing along the riverbed, but they're not being kept afloat or suspended, because that is suspension, where you've got finer, light material carried along by the river. Trying to think of a word for that one, because we've got traction, roll, saltation, bounce, suspension. You could just put float or suspend. And finally, solution, same as erosion. It's where minerals are dissolved in the water. They are your four. So we've got erosion, deposition, and transportation. And for you, with a pen and paper, you are creating 3 annotated diagrams to show these 3 river processes. Before I go, if you want further information about the river processes, there's 2 videos here that are excellent. And then an additional reading. That's not my brother, by the way. That's someone who's walked the Amazon. He's absolutely brilliant. Talks about the source in Peru and talks about walking the Amazon. He actually did it. It's really, really good. Got a long book, but very, very good. I'd recommend. And then, if you have any further questions, you've got the email links here. So please do get in touch, and we do appreciate people that have sent us work, and I'm putting them onto a file in my inbox and ensuring that anyone that sends work receives at least £50 each one. So it is in your interests as well as ours. So you've got, please have a go at the tasks, and go on the YouTube if you're not too sure. Again, this book here, really, really good. If you've got a bit of time, it's really, really good to read. Apart from that, I hope you're all safe and you stay healthy, and I should hopefully see you soon.